2020 has led to this isolation of people that I've personally never seen before. And although many gamers are connecting through the games they play, many of us are taking a hit with our mental health. Thankfully, there's one man that is set out to change the lives of gamers across the world and their mental health. And his name is Dr. K. What's going on, ProGuides family? I'm your motivation guy, Keith Allen. And today we're gonna talk about the story of Dr. K and how he's helping the mental health of gamers everywhere so that they know that they're not alone.
You gotta fucking live your life, man. Because you've only got one to live. And you've gotta make it as awesome and as epic and as failure as possible.
Dr. Alok Kanojia's childhood was a whirlwind of difficult schooling and video games. He was in a school that had a very high teacher-to-student ratio, meaning each kid could have a lot of attention thrown their way to help with their development. Alok thrived, and while he only studied there for 2 years, he was smart enough to skip a grade entirely. And because of that, he entered first grade a whole year younger than all of his classmates. On the one hand, skipping a grade can be a great thing. It shows that you're super smart and you have a lot of potential that people don't want to waste. On the other hand, it means that everyone else is a year older than you. He was a 5-year-old surrounded by 6-year-olds, and that's a pretty big difference. Because of that difference, he was terrible at sports in comparison to everybody else, and so instead he became hooked by video games. There's a second downside to being pushed ahead a year as well. You might start to develop an ego and let all that go to your head. And in high school, and that was exactly that happened with Alok. He was failing in college, he had begun to fall behind and just felt like he didn't have much of a direction in life. And growing his addiction to video games wasn't helping matters. In his first year of college, he had less than a 2.0 GPA, and his second year hadn't gotten any better. He actually slept through his Spanish final because he had spent way too much time grinding games the night before. I'm sure that's something that a lot of us have been through. Eventually, he ended up graduating college with a 2.5 GPA, and he wanted to know what was wrong with him. Why was he playing video games all the time?
And then basically was failing out of college and then ended up going to India at the age of 21 because my life was going nowhere. I had less than a 2.0 GPA, was failing, all that good stuff.
It was in India that he properly learned about yoga and meditation, and it was his love at first sight. Through the Eastern philosophies of yoga and meditation, he felt as if he could just better understand himself in a more methodical way. By sitting down and being alone with himself, he could just study who he actually was and thus forge the best possible version of himself.
It's about understanding how a human being works. Because there are laws and principles that govern your physiology, your neuroscience, psychology, right?
However, Alok had been a skeptic, and while he might have felt more in tune with himself, he wanted to get to the bottom of things properly to verify his feelings. He became a researcher, trying to find out what was actually going on in his mind when he experienced things during his meditation sessions. His research started off with EEG studies on meditators, but stretched much further as he became a neuroscience researcher. After that, his mind was set. He wanted to become a doctor. His biggest reason for going down the path of a medical professional was because one of his meditation leaders told him that unless he succeeded in the material world, he would never be successful in the world of the spirit either.
Because the real world is like for noobs, and the spiritual world is for experts. Pros go to the spiritual world. That's what he told me.
With only a 2.5 GPA, it would be a difficult path to take. But it was one that he knew what was right for him.
A few years ago when I was training, I got kind of curious about video game addiction.
At first, he wanted to become a holistic cancer doctor who treated cancer with herbs and taught yoga and meditation while also helping people get in touch with their spirituality as they came to the end of their lives. But the truth was, he had always been interested in the mind.
So I just didn't believe that you can understand the mind without understanding the body. And that's why I decided to become a psychiatrist instead of a psychologist.
It took him a couple of years, but eventually he was able to get into medical school. He studied psychiatry in Boston at the Massachusetts and the McLean Hospital, which are both Harvard Med School teaching affiliates. While he was learning in these establishments, there was something that he would always ask his teachers, as well as other experts in the psychiatric field. He would ask them about video game addiction and whether they knew of any ways that he could help people who had problems with video games. He was met with blank stares almost every time. None of them seemed to have any idea about anything to do with video games, let alone the fact people could actually be addicted to gaming. It didn't just stop there either. Dr. K had heard plenty of stories about gamers who had gone to their doctor with symptoms of depression. and were then prescribed medication. They would take the medication but go back to playing the same video games for the same amount of time. Their overall mood had improved, yes, but their lives were still solely focused on video games, with nothing else going on in their lives. In other words, they weren't really gaming healthily.
I got kind of curious about it, and I realized that actually none of my mentors or leaders in the field could actually tell me much about it because they didn't know much about it.
So, since his teachers had nothing to offer on the subject and doctors were clearly failing their patients, Dr. K set off on his own to learn more about gaming addiction. He started by reaching out to gamers all over the planet, working with them and just to try to understand why they played games so often. As he spoke with more people and just tried to help them slowly, he started to get better and better at it, and eventually he felt confident enough to open up Healthy Gamer.
Today, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about why we become doormats and how to stop being a doormat. Let's talk a little bit about motivation, okay? We're there to help you with problems like procrastination, motivation, depression, anxiety, and helping you get unstuck. What effect does gaming have on the mind? What does gaming do to your mind?
As part of Healthy Gamer, Dr. K is trying to help gamers live their best possible IRL lives, and it's all to do with gamers and their mental health. Connecting with people on platforms like Discord and Twitch, and creating a whole website filled with resources and dedicated coaches that are there to help people with their mental health. Dr. K's managed to help a whole bunch of gamers. They take an evidence-based approach to help gamers understand their brains and their bodies. They allow them to talk to other healthy gamers who get the issues that they're having and then act on a plan with a recovery group and a support group.
So thank you guys so much for bringing a lot of different perspectives. I guess I've got a couple of kind of directions, and I just want to sort of see where you guys want to go.
It all started with what Dr. K calls his Alpha Group in 2018. He did an AMA on Reddit about video game addiction. And from that AMA, 15 separate people reached out to them. He would spend 1 hour a week with the same group of people, and all of them discussing their video game addiction, the mind, and meditation. He worked with them over the course of a year, and over the time, he realized that he shouldn't just be focusing on video game addiction, but mental health in general. We live in a very different world to how things were even recent as 15 years ago. We live in a world that, thanks to social media, we can't get away from any bullies. Life is moving a mile a minute, and it doesn't seem like it's slowing down anytime soon. None of that even begins to touch on the stresses of this year in particular with the global pandemic.
And so my first thought was, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, people are more adaptive towards, COVID because they're gamers. But then another part of me jumped up and thought something really horrible. The rest of the world is falling apart because they're quarantined, and we live like this every single day. That COVID quarantine is a way of life for our generation. That is fucked up.
So while Dr. K was going to start trying to cure people of their video game addiction, by the time he started making videos on YouTube and streaming on Twitch, his goal had changed. He wanted to help people understand evolving issues and the nuances of their mental health. He started streaming and posting videos in January 2019, and over the course of the last 2 years, he's managed to grow his subscriber base on YouTube to over 400,000, and his followers on Twitch to around the same. These are the primary places that he tries to help wide audiences understand why they feel the way they feel, especially where video games are concerned. His first YouTube videos were essentially seminars on certain psychological concepts, from videos about the basics on video game addiction to more complicated subjects like how gaming affects the dopamine reward response in your brain. He aimed to teach just about everything and how it could relate to video games. And as he started to get more well-known on the internet, bigger YouTubers and streamers in the gaming space started to reach out to Dr. K, not just to make videos with them, but to get help in their own right. He's talked about depression with the late World of Warcraft pro Rekful.
Yeah, I've dealt with depression my whole life, pretty much. I mean, since I was 14, and I'm 30 now.
Okay.
And a bunch of people in my chat were telling me I should call you.
Okay.
So here I am.
He's spoken about the fear of dying with Ethan Evans, who is the vice president of Twitch Prime. His most popular videos even have him talking with streamers like Lily Pichu and Pokimane about their experiences with streaming. Believe it or not, all of his work with healthy gamers is actually just Dr. K's side hustle. His main work is as a private psychiatrist based out of Boston with his own Psychiatry. He's also an instructor in psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. where he works alongside leading clinicians, researchers, and academics who are on the bleeding edge of psychiatric care. Dr. K genuinely cares about gamers. When he was young, gaming was the one place that he felt like he could be himself. And while his game playing may have just spiraled into addiction, he still respects gamers and the games that they play. And all he wants to do is just help them be healthy gamers. He's also one of very few doctors who actually gets the issue. In 2018, the World Health Organization made a landmark leap forward. They recognized gaming disorder in the 11th revision of the International Classification of Diseases. However, many other medical professionals disagreed with the classification and maintained that it was similar to internet addiction and that it could possibly have any impact on the brain, not in the same way something like drugs or alcohol addiction does. While he agrees that gaming addiction is real, Dr. K worries about the designation from the WHO as well.
My understanding is that video game addiction is different because there are a lot of people I've worked with who used to have really problematic gaming who still enjoy playing games but are doing fine in life now.
He worries that it could lead to video games being further stigmatized and that it would just end up with the same type of 12-step treatment that recovery programs for addicts of drugs and alcohol always seem to become. He's of the belief that every addiction is different, even the ones that are more widely known, and that usually the end goal is to get the person to quit the behavior they are addicted to completely.
One of the people that I work with he's actually a really successful entrepreneur, makes like 7 figures a year, and still plays like video games for like 30 hours a week. And I think he's okay with that, and I think that's fine too. If you're doing everything that you want to do, and you want to play video games for 30 hours a week, that's fine, go for it.
There's no real support or advice about helping them live a healthier life while still doing the thing that they want to do. No one wants gamers to be getting 12 months sober from gaming badges, right? All that being said, Dr. K also acknowledges that healthy gamer isn't a complete substitute for therapy. Instead, it's the first stepping stone that should lead gamers to feel more comfortable about getting support with their problems. Through his live streams, which are often done with big streamers, he wants to help break down the taboos and walls around mental health conversations in the gaming world, to encourage more gamers to get therapy for all their problems. The issue at hand, as Dr. K has explained numerous times, is that games generate a sense of accomplishment for those who play them by the measured denial of a reward. Games are hard to win, which means when you do, you feel so satisfied. But building your whole life around that sense of achievement from gaming is not healthy. You need to find other things that you can feel accomplishment from, so that you can just game in a healthier way. His goal isn't to stop people from gaming, it's to help gamers build a life where gaming isn't the only thing that gets you through the day.
Well, guys, that was the story of Dr. K and his Healthy Gamer Initiative. Hey, if you want to see more documentaries like this, make sure you guys like the video, sub to the channel, and we got so much more great content coming out. Once again, I'm Keith Allen, and I'll see you soon.